self-styled global warming guru Al Gore, shown, and a gaggle of supposed climate scientists have egg all over their faces, big time. In 2007, 2008 and 2009, Gore publicly and very hysterically warned that the North Pole would be ice-free by around 2013 because of alleged man-made global warming. Citing climate experts, the government-funded BBC hyped the mass hysteria, running a now embarrassing article under the headline, "Arctic Summers Ice-Free by 2013. Other establishment media outlets did the same. Well, 2013 is almost over, and contrary to the alarmist predictions by Gore and what critics refer to as his doomsday cult, the latest satellite data show that Arctic ice cover has actually expanded 50% over 2012 levels. In fact, during October, sea ice levels grew at the fastest pace since records began in 1979. Experts predict the expansion to continue in the years to come, leaving global warming alarmists scrambling fiendishly for explanations to save face, and to revive the rapidly melting climate hysteria. In September, meanwhile, data also showed that sea ice levels in Antarctica had expanded to record levels for the second year in a row. Of course, by now, virtually everyone who has been following news about global warming, now more often referred to as climate change owing to public relations concerns, also knows that global temperatures have not risen for some 17 years. The spectacular lack of warming demolished all 73 of the climate models used by the United Nations to push its controversial theories. According to the dubious theories and predictions advanced by Al Gore and other alarmists, though, none of this should be happening. Speaking to an audience in Germany 5 years ago, Gore, sometimes ridiculed as the Goracle, alleged that the entire North Polarized cap will disappear in 5 years. While the original video of that particular failed prediction appears to have been scrubbed from the internet, conservative bloggers managed to track down the same footage from other sources. 5 years, Gore emphasized again, is the period of time during which it is now expected to disappear. The following year, Gore made similar claims at a UN climate summit in Copenhagen. Some of the models suggest that there is a 75% chance that the entire North Polar ice cap, during some of the summer months, could be completely ice-free within the next 5 to 7 years, Gore claimed in 2009. We will find out. Indeed, the bogus prediction appears wildly off the mark, to put it mildly, but the establishment press and Gore apparently do not want the world to find out. In fairness, Gore was hardly the only hysterical climate doomsday proponent to be left looking foolish. In December of 2007, the BBC highlighted alleged modelling studies that supposedly indicate northern polar waters could be ice-free in summers within just 5-6 years. Incredibly, some of the supposed experts even claimed it could happen before then, citing calculations performed by supercomputers that the BBC noted has become a standard part of climate science in recent years. Our projection of 2013 for the removal of ice in summer is not accounting for the last two minima, in 2005 and 2007, claimed Professor Wisław Masłowski, described as researcher from the Naval Postgraduate School who was working with co-workers at NASA to come up with the now thoroughly discredited forecasts about polar ice. So given that fact, you can argue that maybe, our projection of 2013 is already too conservative. Other experts quoted in the BBC article agreed with the hysteria. In the real world, however, the scientific evidence demolishing the global warming theories advanced by Gore, the UN, and government-funded climate scientists continues to grow, along with the ice cover in both hemispheres. In the Arctic, for example, data collected by Europe's Cryosat spacecraft pointed to about 9,000 cubic kilometers of ice at the end of the 2013 melt season. In 2012, which was admittedly a low year, The total volume was about 6,000 cubic kilometers. In other words, Arctic ice grew by some 50% in 2013 over the previous year. Polar bear populations are thriving, too. Across the southern hemisphere, the data have proved even more devastating to what supposed climate scientists were caught referring to as their cause in the deeply embarrassing Climate-gate emails. First, the figures from 2012 showed a record high level of sea ice cover, more than at any point since records began in 1978. This year set another new record, with ice covering more than 19.5 million square kilometers of ocean around Antarctica by September. Around the world, meanwhile, record low temperatures continue to make a mockery of global warming theories. While anecdotal, to be sure, Cairo, Egypt, just saw its first snowfall in more than 100 years. In the United States there have been thousands of new records for cold temperatures and snowfalls just in the month of December. In an extremely bizarre twist, some climate scientists have even started claiming that the freezing temperatures are actually more evidence of global warming. To explain the universally acknowledged lack of warming over the last 17 years in defiance of all UN climate theories, government-funded climate scientists and the UN have increasingly touted what critics ridicule as the theory of the ocean et my global warming. Under heavy political pressure from the Obama administration and other governments, the UN ran with the theory, despite the lack of any observable evidence to suggest the deep ocean is actually eating the UN's predicted global warming. Appearing increasingly detached from reality to independent scientists, the UN claimed in its latest global warming report to be 95% sure that human emissions of carbon dioxide were to blame for rising temperatures. Those claims, now widely laughed at around the world, were made despite the fact that every single one of its computer models has been entirely discredited by the lack of warming for the last 17 years. Many experts are now even predicting global cooling. Top scientists and experts around the world, even many who have served on the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, have been ridiculing the global outfit and its discredited climate report. Most governments and dictators, however, continue playing along with what some experts call the climate charade or hoax, mostly due to built-in incentives and taxpayer funds that help perpetuate the unjustified alarmism. For third world dictators, the goal appears to be securing trillions in Western taxpayer money under the guise of climate reparations and justice. For governments ruling wealthier nations, the end game seems to be carbon taxes and a planetary climate regime with unprecedented powers over humanity. Assembled in Warsaw for the latest UN climate summit, even as the implosion of the science behind global warming theories was accelerating, member regimes agreed to finalize a global climate treaty by 2015. Polls show that despite hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars squandered on global warming alarmism, the American public still refuses to widely accept the man-made warming theories advanced by an increasingly discredited UN and its allies. A September Asmussen survey of likely voters, for example, found that just 43% of likely US voters believe alleged global warming is caused by human activity. About the same number believe it is not. Despite vicious attacks and threats, some of it exposed in the Climate-gate scandal, scientists are increasingly jumping off the sinking climate ship as well. Even some major governments are working to rein in the out-of-control alarmism, with authorities in Australia, elected in a landslide earlier this year, promising to liberate the nation from carbon taxes while quashing much of the taxpayer-funded global warming juggernaut. Calls for prosecuting fraud by climate scientists are growing, too. So far, despite hyping the absurd claims 5 years ago, the establishment press has failed to inform its dwindling readership that Al Gore and his fellow alarmists were proven embarrassingly wrong. No apologies have been forthcoming from Gore, either, and none of the scientists who made the ridiculous predictions has apologized or lost his US taxpayer-funded job. In fact, almost unbelievably, The establishment press is now parroting new claims from the same discredited experts suggesting that the Arctic will be ice-free by 2016. As Gore put it in 2009, "We